Welcome, everyone, to Sysco Canada's podcast series and webinar. We're very happy today to have super guest on. I'm going to call you super guest, Jamie, from runningrestaurants.com down in Florida. So welcome to the show again, Jamie.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm usually on the other side doing the interviewing, so I get uncomfortable being asked questions. So let's see what happens.
Well, let's see how this one goes. Well, thanks again. We're going to talk a little bit today around recovery, snapback. We've seen a lot of things change. Today's May 1st. Definitely a new world again. And we see a lot of things coming. We see a lot of restaurants getting prepped, getting ready to reopen. The questions are starting to come in from all areas. And we're going to tackle some of those today. And I think we've got some reference from, some reference material here we're going to go through and share with us on the webinar. So hopefully you guys can see our webinars. Our webinars are going to be on our YouTube channel, as well as we created a snapback toolkit for Sysco customers on our foodiesunite.ca site. You can go on there and all these resources. We've got a huge toolbox of all these great resources that are available. And this webinar and podcast will be loaded up there as well. So anyways, let's get into it, Jamie. Let's talk.
Yeah, man. So as you know, so at runningrestaurants.com, we've been also just covering COVID for our readers and members for a month and a half now, right? We're going into seventh week of it, and just hard and heavy doing that. This past week, we did a very kind of extensive session on getting back to it and what it's going to take. So I'll have a couple of slides to share from there. And then one of the other things, once we start sharing the screen, is we'll just take a look at what other people are doing that are ahead of us on the curve. Overseas, they started earlier and now they're coming out of it earlier, and they've already have plans to go it. And an organization in Hong Kong did a great job with the playbook. And so we'll just take a look at a few pages from that guide momentarily. So let's go ahead and first. Well, let's go right to them. I mean, they did such a good job. Let's pull up the screen that has this black sheep playbook, and these guys, I believe, I forget the story, but they have multiple locations, so they're not a tiny operation. So there's relatively significant operation, first of all, but they took the time to put together some of their learnings, and it's very, very good. And this is easy to find on the web. Jay, I'll send you the link if people.
Yeah, we'll include it at the bottom. Yeah, we'll include it at the bottom of the podcast as well as on the webinar.
Yeah, so I mean, the PDF, it's probably 15 pages or so, but this is where everyone has to start, right? We have to start with a whole new mindset about hygiene and cleaning, and this is where our customers are going to judge us. Our staff is going to judge us, and we need to be 100% with this. So dry topic, not sexy, but you've got to wash your hands and you've got to do it religiously. And as a guideline, I've seen people say 10 minutes. I've seen people say 20 minutes. These guys happen to say, hey, every 30 minutes, make sure you wash your hands. Obviously, wipe everything down. Masks, I believe, in some states and provinces, it's just going to be mandatory for the staff to wear that. Follow your own guidelines.
And Jamie, just to jump on that, and one thing that came up in a podcast we did yesterday with a marketing company, just around the social aspects, people are going to be watching you than they've ever watched you before as a restaurateur. So if your staff is supposed to be wearing masks or gloves, guess what? You better have them, because people are like looking for you to not have them, and they will post your stuff. Yeah. And then you got social media all over you on that.
Absolutely. Right. One picture goes on whatever, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever, and it shows your staff being inappropriate. Guess what? You might as well shut down again, because people are going to choose another location. So just a couple other thoughts there. Nothing you don't know here, but we're going to be much more religious about our shared surfaces, increased cleaning across the board with the deep cleaning, so forth. And unfortunately, we can't hug and handshake and high five and fist bump. It's going to be weird not to do those things with people that that are our friends. I'm still not sure how that's going to happen.
Especially in our industry.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it is. So that's the piece on the hygiene. I think it all has to start there. You're going to want to be very careful in terms of, not careful is not the right word, but you're going to have a policy in place for how you're treating folks that are coming in, whether it's, this may not be the page for it, but I'm just on the top of my head, whether you're checking your staff with a thermometer gun and or other procedures. So you're going to have to have that in place, because normally people come in and they work sick because they need to make money, but that cannot be the case anymore. You have to have a very liberal policy around being healthy, completely healthy, because we cannot be spreading our germs. We can't be coughing in the kitchen. We just can't do it right now. So all that stuff is 100% different than it was before. Strongly discourage travel to your team at the moment. So yeah, if you're, I don't think anybody's traveling extensively. And if they do, then they're going to have to go through a self-isolation process. What else is on this page? Deliveries. We careful with deliveries and so forth.
Yeah, and I think it's really important when you have a document, and I'm not saying every restaurant needs something this extensive, but to have this available, or even like a couple of pagers of information on your practices, I think builds a consumer confidence that you're trying to reiterate from your restaurant. And I think that's so important. I think building consumer confidence right now, this does it, right? This shows that they're placing actions in place. I think it's really critical that people are considering how they're going to build the consumers that come into their locations, the confidence that you're doing what's right for their best interest.
Yeah, so certainly this is a great guideline. So again, this in terms of hey, beg, borrow, and steal. These guys have created it. Go, use this as a starting point. You may grab only half of the bullets applied to your restaurant or your state or your province and situation, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And of course, you can add your own spin. I don't know if the U.S. or Canada will go as far as say they did in Hong Kong, but here they actually have a form where they're asking the customer to fill out a form before you can sit down in the restaurant. Name, contact information, things like that. That health declaration form. You're not sick, etc. And in essence, it becomes a contact tracing form. Privacy concerns, I don't know, but it is implemented in some places, and it may become the norm. They have an example of it to use if things go that way. You can see what a form looks like there. This one talks about, hey, if a guest presents with a high fever or presents with a situation you're not comfortable, you may have to have the conversations about turning folks away. You've never turned folks away at your restaurant before. What does that look like for your host who's never had a difficult conversation? So you need to give potentially some scripts to your staff on how to deal with these situations. And you're going to have to role play some of this out in ways that you never have before. And so it's going to be coming upon you as the leader to have that content ready to go. And again, this resource has some of those scripts.
And I'm going to guess, best practices are going to be like every day, almost a couple times a day, you're going to have those staff meetings in the corner to review a lot of these different things, and make sure everyone's reminded them, because, I think it's important to always have it at top of the mind and just revisit it. And it could be check-ins all day. You could do your morning if you are open for morning, or your lunchtime, your supper, your rush, your nighttime. I think the more that you can communicate with your staff during this, which I think you will, but depending on the size, there's going to be a lot of questions coming from the staff through this. And that might be even, let's say there's 2 to 3 weeks right now, pre-staff meetings virtual right now, I think are going to be very important, because there's going to be a lot of questions your staff's going to have.
It's a good question. And where we are in the US, a lot of staffs were immediately laid off and with no promise to come back, because who knew what was going to happen. And now as the loans are coming in and people are starting to rehire here, you do have to go through a very extensive communication process with your team. So hopefully you have text numbers for everybody, or you start a Zoom chat with your group. And so you're keeping people in the loop. Hey guys, looks like we're 3 days away now. In 2 days, we're getting some deliveries, and I want to bring you guys in for 2 hours. Make sure you have a mask with you and gloves, or we have gloves on premise, or whatever. Yeah. So that communication process is very important. The last thing here, then we'll go away from this document, knowing that it's out there as a resource. Obviously, I think we're going to come back to 50% capacity or different physical distances. So how does that work in your restaurant? I'm sure you've already started to think about that, how you can reformat your dining layout plan. Where I am in Florida, governor just announced 2 days ago that when restaurants can open on Monday, a few days from now, 25% capacity. So weird number. But it's a starting point. And so if you could fit 100 and you can only fit 25, where are you going to put them in your restaurant that makes the most sense? Things that you need to think about ahead of time. And of course, all the things you need to do to keep clean. Let's jump over to, let me see if this will work. Does that, yeah, you can see that, right, Jay? The screen?
Yep. Yeah,
good.
scroll it down a little.
Yes, sir. Things to think about. Things to think about. So I bought, talking about Beg Bar Steel. So this was presented by Darren Dennington from Service with Style. I had a webinar with him. His slide, full credit goes to Darren and his team. But I thought this slide was terrific in terms of things you need to think about as you start the reopening process. And it's a lot, right? I mean, all these things, we talked about some of them maybe last week with you, Jay, and I'm sure you've covered them in other sessions. But when you look at all this stuff on one page, it's a little bit daunting and makes you think, man, how are we going to operate it? What is it going to look like in the future? Any of these jump off the page at you?
There's a few actually, right? I just like talk a little bit around the 20-minute cleanings. I've heard this before, like that was happening over in different countries. And it's adding possibly a new staff member onto your daily schedule, or what you're adding in there, that all they do is clean. But I also have heard the 20-minute cleanings. I think there was some large chains that were implementing that, and every 20 minutes it's clean time. Very interesting. But that's a big one.
Well, yeah, and it begs the question: what was that number before? How often was it done before? And I've been in clean restaurants, and we've all been in not so clean restaurants where you're sitting on the booth that's next to the window, and you look over, and it's just like a half-inch layer of dust on the windowsill. That just doesn't instill confidence, and so we can't have that environment. So, hey, no one has an excuse for being dirty right now. When you've been shut down, your place should be spick and span, the cleanest it's ever been since opening day. So definitely make sure that is the case. And now, I'm sorry, I don't know, ring a bell, ding a bell, have fun with it. I don't know, but every 20 minutes, go through.
Ding a bell.
I don't know.
I like that. Though I've heard everything. I've heard, I've heard door guys. I've heard restaurants having door guys now that will just hold the door for you, so you don't have to touch the door. I've heard of some restaurants keeping the door open as best as they can, obviously depending on the weather. But it's really interesting how we're going to provide a level of experience as well into our guests, of what they also determine what experiences are moving forward, right? What's important.
And there's some challenges. Darren, who I presented with, actually also owns and operates a restaurant. Happens to be one of the primary things they do is a buffet. And, people are saying, hey, no buffet right now, probably maybe salad bar, maybe with restrictions. Yep. So if that was your main concept, you're not in good position right now. You'll maybe have to pivot, completely change from that environment. And we talked about last week with you, the traditional get your drink and refill it up. And there's open straws and lemons and, cups and all that kind of concept has to go away. There's going to have to be new ways around handling cash and credit card, and maybe we're paying on apps more, and we're using our own technology versus touching other people's technology until we all get comfortable again. Disposable menus is going to be a big deal. People have you think about those restaurants that have the 7-page menu that you're like, oh my, all this stuff. But I don't want to hold a 7-page menu right now and go through it. So are you printing every day? And is it just, a sheet of paper that when it's gone and move to the next one? Maybe that's the way to go. You're used to having the ketchup and the mustard and the salt right on the table. I don't think that's not what we're going to come back to. What else? I mean, even if it's not on here, other stuff you've seen people.
I think the big thing on it, like I want to talk a little bit about removing tables. So you have to remove half your tables. Obviously that's going to vary, right? It's going to vary, but I think it's going to vary. But I think what I would say is we have to determine, I think the important part on this one, Jamie, is you need to understand your cost on this, because the percentages of what the governments are going to allow you in there, you're going to have to play your business to equal out what those percentage of people are going to be in your restaurant to make some sort of profit, right? So you need to make sure that hopefully the time that we've been down, people have done some Googling and pulled some those tools out, and if not, go to foodieasyunite.ca back toolkit, because we have them there, and use those tools, because you need to know your break even almost on this new model of business you're going to have, and it might adjust every week. That this week you got 25% you can allow, next week's 50.
That's right.
And then you can understand how many items you can run on your menu. You can understand how many staff you can run. This is a very I wouldn't say complicated, but very it could be, if you don't know those things, and that's okay. I think a lot of restaurants over the last many years I've been doing this, is that they're getting better at that, of understanding their numbers. But hopefully you've had some time to do that. If not, definitely reach out and learn this, because you're going to need to know, because everything works together. Everything's the size of your restaurant, the amount of people, table turns, time, menu, staff, all connect to make a formula, right, that equals out what your profit's going to be. And we don't want people losing money when they open up. We need to make money, right? So especially because we've been down for so long, we want to make some sort of profit. And I know that's going to vary, but it is important they know their numbers, especially when they start adjusting their model of business.
Yeah, well, you talk about model. That's the last slide I'll show it as we start to head towards wrapping up. But yeah. I mean, model is exactly right. This last month, depending where you are, month and a half, has been a time to hit a reset button. Think about who you are, where things could potentially go, where you want to go, where your passion still is in the business. It may have been waning in the past, and this is a chance to maybe phase out, or it may be, as high as it's ever been, and you want to go back and conquer this thing. So, but for right now, I mean, yeah, you're going to have to look at your hours based on capacity. What do you do that's different? You're going to have to look at your type of service, and on the bottom of this chart, I think it's at the bottom of this slide where we have curbside, takeout, delivery, drop-off catering, third-party delivery, counter service, full service, breakfast, lunch, dinner, bar. So those are all the possible things you could do as an operator. Which of them do you do? Which of them do you focus the most on? How can you maximize each one that you do right now, in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term? And all those things have to do with menu maximization, great marketing, obviously great service, and so forth. And of course, having good food. But what we've learned from this process is it's not a great idea moving in the past and then moving forward to only do one of these. Let's say you just did breakfast and lunch. Well, you've learned, man, that's probably not a great model if things go sideways. You've learned if you just did drop off, what happens if, gas is no longer allowed and you can't drop things, so weird things can happen. So it would be great to be able to circle. You don't have to circle every single one of those buttons, but you can't rely on just one or two. You should fully build out a model that takes advantage of 3, 4, 5 different revenue streams.
Oh, absolutely.
To be stronger. So that's kind of the last kind of main point I had today. There's still so much going on, still so much to think about here in the States. Like I said, if Florida's starting to slowly reopen next week, some states are definitely locked down for another month. Some have opened even last week. And I think it's very similar where you are. And there's going to be this slow process, and we're still going to learn. So that's some of the stuff we've learned so far. It's going to continue to change. We're going to continue to update you on our site, runningrestaurants.com. You can go there and check out stuff. But that's my thoughts for the day. Anything else to touch on? You think?
Well, I think I think the biggest thing is just letting restaurateurs and the people that are listening to our shows here is to understand that the best thing I can give advice from just doing this for zillions of years, and prior to this, is I would say this before, but definitely now it makes sense. But you're sitting back right now and you don't know what to do. Get a piece of paper, get a pen, and start just mapping out that plan. And I think it was on one of your shows, Jamie, I saw that you were talking about building blocks, and it was very visual. And I think the thing is that you need to build a map. Just take a pen and a paper, write out what you're going to do. What's your menu you're going to do? And then mind map off of those key components. So if I write down the word menu and then mind map, so you're drawing different little circles, and what am I going to do with a menu? It's going to be only 5 items. I'm going to need to move it 2 weeks from there to 10 items. I'm going to do this with my menu. I'm going to explore one appetizer. I'm going to explore comfort food. I'm also going to make this unique item that's signature to my restaurant. You need to do that and then go on to labor. What am I going to do? I'm going to hire back these people. I mean, these are my strengths of those people. What are they going to do? How long is a shift going to be? You need to mind map this out and scribble it down. I have to say it's that easy. Then you can use the amazing tools we have that are available out there to, put into that format. But as I know, restaurateurs, that probably a good old napkin and a pen might be where you're at, and that's okay too. And allow for risk and allow for mistakes. Okay. And we talk about that in business so much, is that we have to allow for mistakes and risks. You're venturing into a whole different world that you can't be critical that something didn't work, right? And that model didn't work or this didn't work. You need to allow that into your business model and your mindset, and to fail. I know failure is going to be very critical not to fail during these times, because the world isn't going to really accept a lot of failure in certain areas. But I think when you start trying different stuff out, it's okay. And I think that's the biggest thing I can give people advice, is have a plan, write it out. Maybe that would do next show, Jamie's. We'll mind map a restaurant on how to open up. I'll get a flip chart somewhere and we'll mind map it out. But that's because when you do that, you physically start seeing what you got to work on. You go, oh, I didn't even think about, like we said last show, coffee. What's your coffee program going to look like now? Or your beverage program? Or how are you going to pay? What's your bill format going to look like? Is it all electronic? Everything's going contactless. How's that going to work, right? What happens if you get a bad social media press? Someone does catch one of your staff doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and it's not their fault. It was by accident, and someone takes a picture and posts it. How do you address those, right? And those are the things that we're going to learn as we go. But all I could say is just take your time right now. We all want every restaurant open. Oh man, do I ever? I can't wait. And it's gonna be hard not to hug the first server I get. But I won't. But the days that we can, man, you watch out. This industry is amazing, and we're going to come back so strong, and getting this back into what we feel is normal, and dealing with the new normal. But I just can't stress plan, and plan for the odd thing that goes sideways, because I know running restaurants, it'll be the odd time. Yeah, there's my feedback. There's my ideas. What do you think, Jamie? What's your last comment? So let's give me some of that wise Florida knowledge.
Listen, I'll be quick, and I'll echo exactly what you said. The only thing I will add to it is, don't do it just you on the piece of paper. Go ahead and bring your staff in, and people that don't normally get to brainstorm, because a restaurant is so crazy, they're filled with a bunch of great ideas about your restaurant. So let them throw that stuff on the paper and see what sticks, and you'll be surprised at the great ideas of your team. So I would just add that thought.
That is brilliant. And I actually was just saying that before I got shut down from traveling over and doing shows. That was my big thing. Is it's the new mindset almost of the restaurant, is even prior to COVID, was include your staff into ideas on building your restaurant, right? And I always call it the 80s mindset. Nothing to beat up 8 people from the 80s, but back in the 80s when we ran restaurants, it was my idea, and then I told my staff what I was going to do with that restaurant, and it was like a one man mindset. Not nowadays. You got to get everyone involved, and I think to your point, why not have these team meetings right now with your staff and start talking about different revenue streams and different ideas? And I bet you'll be blown away by what your staff can come up with. We always, when we did menus and we redid menus, it was always the staff that picked out the errors in the menus. It wasn't the ownership; it was always them. So they're brilliant people, and we need to include them in the process. And that's awesome advice, Jamie. That's
yes, sir.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, if they're, we're going to keep this short because we're going to do more of these. We're going to have Jamie back. I love talking to him. We could talk all day. I can't wait to visit you one day in Florida.
Come on down.
I can't wait. I got a couple visits down in the States. I got to go to California. I was invited last week. So Got to go down there and visit you guys and have lunch and dinner and a restaurant. We can't wait. So once again, Jamie, it's a pleasure meeting you through this crisis and also being a part of our Advantage program and just getting to talk to you about these ideas. It's just awesome. I enjoy so much of this.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, Jay. Thanks so much for having me, and we'll do it again. We'll see everybody soon.
Yes, thanks again, everybody. So for people that are listening to this on a podcast, we're on Spotify, Apple, all the podcast channels that are out there. Your favorite one, listen to us there. And also up on YouTube, we're going to put this webinar up there. And then also on our foodiesunite.ca site under the Snap Tool Kit, Snapback Toolkit, is where we're going to post this video and also the links to many more tools we have out there. And we're going to help you get back into business, and we're going to snap back into this. So thanks again, Jamie. To everyone else, thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jay.